Hey guys, welcome back to Bible in the Backyard, which is now on the front porch for this moment in time. The sun's shining, it's really pretty, and there's a swing, so I can't really complain. We're still doing our book of Luke. This is going to be chapter 7. 7 of those, I know a little bit of sign language. It's not that good, but I know a little bit to get me through from point A to point B. But this is chapter 7. We just read chapter 6, and a lot of things happen in chapter 6, and it's deep, and it's a lot of things to kind of discern and think about, even for yourself. I know this is just my interpretation of things. It's not necessarily an overview of scholarly view. This is just me being raised in church and going through the things that I've gone through in my early 20s, and now just kind of talking to you guys as we go through this. So this is going to be chapter 7. If you don't mind if I swing, there's going to be a little creaking noise above here, just because there is. This is chapter 7. Now when he had ended all his sayings in the audience of the people, he entered into Capernaum. And a certain centurion's servant, who was dear unto him, was sick and ready to die. And when he heard of Jesus, he sent unto him the elders of the Jews, beseeching that he would come and heal his servant. And when they came to Jesus, they besought him instantly, saying that he was worthy for whom he should do this. For he loveth our nation, and he hath built us a synagogue. And Jesus went with him. And when he was now not far from the house, the centurion sent his friends to him, saying unto him, Lord, trouble not thyself, for I am not worthy that thou shouldest enter under my roof. Wherefore neither thought I myself worthy to come unto thee, but say in a word, and my servant shall be healed. For I also am a man set under authority, having under me soldiers. And I say unto one, Go, and he goeth, and to another, Come, and he cometh. And to my servant, Do this, and he doeth it. When Jesus heard these things, he marveled at him, and turned him about, and said unto the people that followed him, I say unto you, I have not found so great faith, no, not in Israel. And they that were sent, returning to the house, found the servant whole that had been sick. So Jesus didn't even have to see him. This man was like, I know if you speak it, this is going to happen. And that's the type of faith I feel like we need to have. And that's the type of faith that I've lacked in my life. You say it, it's going to happen. Like, yes, I believe you. And so that is why he says, I say unto you, I have not found so great faith. No, not in Israel. That's interesting. Let's see what comes next. In verse 11, and it says, And it came to pass the day after that he went to a city called Nain, and many of his disciples went with him, and much people. Now when he came nigh to the gate of the city, behold, there was a dead man carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow, and much people of the city was with her. And when the Lord saw her, he had compassion on her, and said unto her, Weep not. And he came and touched the bier. I don't know how to say that word. And they that bare him stood still. And he said, Young man, I say unto thee, arise. And he that was dead sat up, and began to speak, and he delivered him unto his mother. And there came fear on all, and they glorified God, saying that a great prophet is risen up among us, and that God had visited his people. And the rumor of him went forth throughout all Judea, throughout all the region about. And the disciples of John, this is verse 18, showed him all these things. And John, calling unto him 2 of his disciples, sent them to Jesus, saying, Art thou he that should come? Try that again, guys. Verse 19. Okay. And John, calling unto him 2 of his disciples, sent them to Jesus, saying, Art thou he that should come? Or look we for another? When the men were come unto him, they said, John the Baptist has sent us unto thee, saying, Art thou he that should come, or look we for another? In that same hour he cured many of their infirmities and plagues and of evil spirits, and unto many that were blind he gave sight. And Jesus answering said unto them, Go your way, and tell John what things ye have seen and heard, how that the blind see, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, to the poor of the gospel is preached. And blessed is he, whosoever shall not be offended in me. And when the messengers of John were departed, he began to speak unto the people concerning John. What went out ye into the wilderness for to see? A reed shaken with the wind? But what went ye out for to see? A man clothed in soft raiment? Behold, they which are gorgeously apparelled and live delicately are in the king's court. But what went out for to see? A prophet? Yea, I say unto you, and much more than a prophet. This is he of whom it is written, Behold, I send my messenger before thy face, which shall prepare thy ways before thee. If you remember, that was back in chapter 1. For I say unto you, among those that are born of women, there is not a greater prophet than John the Baptist. That he is the least in the kingdom of God is greater than he. And all the people that heard him and the publicans justified God, being baptized with the baptism of John. But the Pharisees and the lawyers rejected the counsel of God against themselves, being not baptized of him. And the Lord said, Whereunto then shall the liken the men of this generation? And to what are they like? They are like unto children sitting in the marketplace, calling one to another, and saying, We have piped unto you, and we have not danced, and we have mourned to you, and we have not wept. For John the Baptist came neither eating bread nor drinking wine, and ye say, He hath a devil. And the Son of Man is come eating and drinking, and ye say, Behold, a gluttonous man, a winebibber, a friend of publicans and sinners. But wisdom is justified of all her children. So basically, I feel like Jesus is kind of calling him out a little bit. I'm reading this straight. There's been necessarily no study into this at all. So I feel like Jesus is kind of calling the Pharisees out a little bit. And he's like, okay, so you're telling me that he was drinking wine and he's doing this, that, and the other, and he's of sound mind. However, you're telling me that if this person is speaking the truth and speaking the prophets of old and speaking this, speaking that, then he's crazy. And this man is a friend of sinners and tax people and people that you just aren't friends with. Let's see. In verse 36, this chapter continues. And one of the Pharisees desired him that he would eat with him, and he went down to the Pharisee's house and sat to meat. So he was like, okay, I'll come eat with you. And behold, a woman in the city, which was a sinner, and she knew that Jesus sat at meat at the Pharisee's house, brought an alabaster box of ointment, and stood at his feet behind him weeping, and began to wash his feet with tears, and did wipe them with the hairs of her head, and kissed his feet, and anointed them with ointment. Now when the Pharisee which had bidden him saw it, spake within himself, saying, This man, if he were a prophet, would have known who and what this manner of woman this is that toucheth him, for she is a sinner. So in that day, basically, if you were a sinner or you were shunned or you've done anything wrong, it was basically wrong to be touched by you. I could be wrong. Please correct me if I am wrong. Back in those days, if you were unclean, you were unworthy to be at dinner. You needed to wash yourself up from head to toe. You needed to do this, you needed to do that, before even thinking about it. And this Pharisee thought this meal was for the high and mighty. This Pharisee thought, oh, this meal is for me and Jesus and just a few of us, and nobody who is unclean or who is a sinner can touch us. You know, that's just kind of how he thought. You can't sit with me because you're not cool enough. Or you can't sit with me because you don't have on the nicest clothes. Or you can't sit with me because you're not in my inner circle. You can't sit with me and I can't walk and talk with you because you don't make enough money. So Jesus says this in verse 40. He says, and Simon answering said unto him, Simon, I have somewhat to say unto thee. And he said, Master, say on. There was a certain creditor which had 2 debtors. The one owed 500 pence and the other 50. And when he had nothing to pay, he frankly forgave them both. Tell me therefore, which of them will love him the most? And Simon answered and said, I suppose that he to whom he forgave the most. And he said unto him, Thou hast rightly judged. He turned to the woman and said unto Simon, Seest thou this woman? I entered into thine house, thou gavest me no water for my feet, but she hath washed my feet with tears, and wiped them with the hairs of her head. Thou gavest me no kiss, but this woman since the time I came in hath not ceased to kiss my feet. My head with oil thou didst not anoint, but this woman had anointed my feet with ointment. Wherefore I say unto thee, her sins, which are many, are forgiven, for she loved much, but to whom little is forgiven, the same loveth little. And he said unto her, Thy sins are forgiven. And they sat at meat with him, began to say with themselves, Who is this that forgiveth sins also? And he said to the woman, Thy faith hath saved thee. Go in peace. I love that story. I love that story because it shows that you can be a person that doesn't make a mistake a day in your life. You can be a person that holds its head high, and you do this and you do that, and you do everything by the book, and you don't think that you need God, and you don't think that you do this, you don't think that you need forgiven. And then you look at someone that has made many mistakes. Hi, I'm here, me. That's made many mistakes and many things. And you're like, well, I've not done anything wrong. And you're just as forgiven as I am. The answer is yes. The answer is yes. Jesus didn't just come to heal people and make people walk and the blind to see and whatnot. He came to forgive us of every single one of our sins that we make during our time here on earth. And to make us new and to let us go and free us from not necessarily those consequences, because our choices do have consequences, and sometimes we do have to sit with them. Sometimes for a long time, sometimes not for too long, but our choices do have consequences. But to give us a new life and a new start, that's what Jesus is for. Okay, that's chapter 7. Coming up, chapter 8.